Breaking NBA news, Rockets point guard Fred VanVleet has torn his ACL, according to multiple reports. Averaged 14 points, 5.5 assists a game for the Rockets last season. They finished second in the West a year ago. They added Kevin Durant this offseason, looking to become a real title contender, but now they're going to be without their #1 point guard for potentially the entire season.
This was supposed to be the year the Rockets went from a fun young team to a legitimate title contender. They had climbed out of the basement of the Western Conference, shocked everyone by finishing as the second seed last season, and doubled down on their championship push by signing Kevin Durant in the offseason. The plan was simple. VanVleet runs the offense, Durant closes games, and the rest of Houston's young stars fill in the gaps. But now, that plan has been shredded in an instant. So what happens now? How do the Rockets survive without their floor general? And who, if anyone, can step into the role he left behind? Fred VanVleet suffered the torn ACL during a team minicamp in the Bahamas. It was a freak accident, one of those moments that makes fans sick to their stomach. Recovery from an ACL tear usually takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months, and in VanVleet's case, that means his season is effectively over before it ever started. He had just signed a 2-year extension this summer, a deal meant to secure his role as the Rockets' on-court leader and locker room voice. Instead, that investment now feels like a heavy weight dragging the team down. And the loss isn't just statistical. VanVleet's value was never only about points or assists. It was about his poise under pressure, his ability to steady the offense, and his leadership when games got chaotic. He was the extension of the coach on the floor, the veteran voice keeping young talent focused. Without him, the Rockets lose far more than a point guard. They lose their anchor. But here's the real problem. Houston doesn't have a clear replacement. Their payroll is packed tight, leaving them with little flexibility under the salary cap. They can't just go out and sign another star guard. At best, they can offer minimum contracts unless they pull off a major trade. And every trade would come with a cost, likely one of their promising young players or a key piece of their depth chart. That puts enormous pressure on their internal options. 2 names immediately jump out: Reed Sheppard and Amen Thompson. Sheppard is only a sophomore guard, still learning the pace and physicality of the NBA. Amen Thompson has the athleticism and defensive chops, but he's raw as a floor general. Both are exciting talents, but asking them to replace VanVleet is like throwing a rookie driver onto the freeway and hoping they don't crash. It's a gamble, and Rockets fans know it. Of course, Houston could turn to the trade market. Rumors have already floated around names like Drew Holiday or TJ McConnell. Both could step in and run an offense, but the price would be steep. Holiday isn't cheap, and McConnell would still cost Houston valuable assets. The Rockets would be forced to give up young players, draft picks, or even role players who help keep their roster balanced. Is it worth gutting the future for a stopgap solution? That's the dilemma haunting Houston's front office right now. And then there are the free agents. Yes, there are veterans willing to sign for the minimum, but none of them come close to replacing VanVleet. You don't swap out a floor general of his caliber with a bench journeyman and expect to keep pace in the West. Every path forward comes with pain. Either they sacrifice tomorrow for today, or they risk wasting an entire season of Kevin Durant's career by hoping their young guards can rise to the occasion. This is where the Rockets' dream collides with reality. With VanVleet, they were looking at a legitimate shot at the finals. Without him, they risk slipping into the middle of the pack. In a conference stacked with the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, and the Warriors, that drop could be fatal. The Rockets may still make the playoffs, but the idea of them hoisting a trophy suddenly feels like fantasy. The organization knows this, which is why their immediate plan is to evaluate from within. Expect to see Sheppard and Thompson take on expanded roles early in the season. The Rockets want to know if either of them can be trusted with the ball when the lights are brightest. Only after December 15th, when more players around the league become trade eligible, will Houston seriously consider making a move. Until then, this is a team in survival mode. And make no mistake, the stakes are enormous. Kevin Durant didn't come to Houston to babysit a rebuild. He came for one last run at another championship. If the Rockets waste this season, it won't just hurt in the standings. It could fracture the chemistry they've been building for 2 years. Imagine the frustration inside that locker room if they fall from second seed to first-round exit. Imagine the media storm if Durant starts questioning whether Houston made the right moves. This is the climax of the crisis. One injury has turned the Rockets from title favorites into the NBA's biggest question mark. Their future now hinges on a pair of unproven guards, a front office terrified of trading too much too soon, and a fan base left wondering if their shot at glory just slipped away before the first game even tipped off. So where does Houston go from here? They'll test their depth, they'll see what Shepard and Thompson can do, and then, if reality forces their hand, they'll consider a blockbuster trade that could reshape the roster for years to come. The question is simple but brutal. Do they gamble their future for today, or do they stay patient and risk wasting Durant's window? Fred VanVleet's ACL tear didn't just injure a player. It may have ended the Rockets' championship dreams before they even began. So what do you think? Should the Rockets push all their chips in and make a trade? Or should they ride it out with their young guards and hope for the best? Drop your thoughts below, and if you're still watching, type Rockets collapse in the comments so I know you're one of the real ones.
The NBA GOAT debate. The most subjective, debatable, confusing, and especially the most frustrating conversation in maybe not just sports, but the entire world. Look, you can tell yourself all you want about how you won't any longer take part in any GOAT debate, or that there's no such thing as a quote-unquote GOAT, or even the fact that the conversation won't ever end. So there's no point in even starting one. But then a friend or someone you know chimes in on the GOAT debate and says something that you don't exactly agree with. And voila! You've just got yourself into another debate. But here's a serious thought. Why should we want to hear each other's opinions instead of the opinions of the guys who actually got to see greatness up close and personal? I get it. Players might be biased towards the era they played in, or might make a certain pick because they feel some type of way towards another player. I say Thomas. So here's what I did. I scoured the internet to find as many opinions as I could from current and former players to find out who they think the NBA's GOAT is. And I've got to say, of the opinions I came across, a lot of them might just surprise you. And if we compare the results from a player poll that was done by The Athletic in 2019, there was a clear-cut answer to the GOAT debate. An overwhelming 73% of active NBA players said Michael Jordan was the GOAT when this poll was conducted over 3 years ago. In second place came LeBron James with 11% of the votes. But because this particular poll didn't factor in former players and NBA legends from different eras, and especially because LeBron James won an NBA title just a year later and is now the NBA's all-time leading scorer, it's worth uncovering how these opinions have changed over the last couple of years. So, here we go.
I'm gonna say one thing to you, Max. I don't know the numbers like you do. Michael Jordan is what in the finals? 6 and what?
Oh.
And what is LeBron in the finals? That's all I gotta say.
That was Shaq's stance on the GOAT debate. Well, actually the MJ-LeBron debate 5 years ago, after LeBron and the Los Angeles Lakers failed to make the playoffs in LeBron's first season in LA. Fast forward 5 years later, and in the present time, it's what makes this debate all the more head-scratching. Players shift and switch their stances all too often.
I think he wants to pass up Kareem. Because if he passes up Kareem in the point, we all gotta shut the hell up. He gonna have 4 rings. We already passed up Kobe, we already passed up Mike, now he passed up Kareem. So if that don't make him the greatest basketball player is, I don't know, what we're talking about.
Actually, allow me to take you one step further to the time, or the times. Scottie Pippen weighed in on the GOAT debate. Apparently for Pippen, he's got 99 problems and making his GOAT pick is one.
There's no game that I would ever play in and pick LeBron James over Michael Jordan.
Well, just a few months later, Pippen completely backtracked and had this to say about who the greatest of all time is.
To say who is the greatest, we will never know that. I mean, in my eye, Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest basketball player.
But even before he said all of the above, Pippen said this year before he changed his stance twice on the GOAT debate.
When you look across the board, not just scoring, check his assists, check his rebounds, he's probably ahead of Jordan.
Oh my God!
Stephen A. Smith's reaction is exactly mine when I consider the fact that Scottie Pippen changed his mind on this subject at least 3 different times. Okay, changing your mind on who the GOAT is one thing, especially because as time goes by, a lot of things change. But calling yourself the greatest of all time is an entirely different matter. And this entirely different matter called for some chaos among fans and pundits.
And then after I stopped, I was like, that one right there made you the greatest player of all time. You know, everybody was just talking how they were the greatest team of all time. Like, they was the greatest team to ever assemble. And for us to come back, you know, the way we came back in that fashion, I was like, you did something special.
Well, that's a first. Before those words came out of LeBron's mouth, I don't recall a time in sports history a player, especially of LeBron's caliber, came out and said that he was the best to ever play the sport. It just doesn't happen. But according to LeBron, he himself is the best to ever play in the NBA. An opinion that just didn't sit too well with a whole lot of people, because a lot of people said what I just told you. Hearing LeBron call himself the GOAT is just weird. Not because he's being egregious or saying something completely out of line, but because we've never heard a historically great player say such a thing about themselves. But I guess LeBron said it because he was around his friends. I mean, what better time to say something like that than when you're sitting in a circle of all your childhood friends who you've spent seemingly a lifetime with? And speaking of friends, why not hear the opinion of the man who probably has been LeBron's biggest friend in the NBA, and someone he's played several seasons with?
Once LeBron James is done playing this game of basketball, I'm definitely gonna tell my grandkids, kids, that I played with one of the greatest to play the game of basketball. He will be the GOAT for a lot of generations. I started playing the game because of Michael Jordan. He will be my GOAT until the day I pass away. It doesn't take anything away from LeBron. This is just like LeBron. We started playing, we envisioned playing like Michael Jordan. So for me, from Chicago, where I grew up, I made it out the hood because I seen a dude, number 23, play the game of basketball at a level that I was like, I just want to do some of that.
That's a rather peaceful way of addressing both LeBron and MJ in the GOAT debate, right? What's not so peaceful, well,
Bro, I'm just going to say this. Any media person that I see in person for the rest of my life who try to tell me LeBron James is good as Michael Jordan, I'm just going to slap the hell out of him right on the spot. Right on the damn spot. No question asked. The next person who walks up to me and say, LeBron James, who is amazing, as good as Michael Jordan or competes like Michael Jordan, I'm just going to slap the hell out of you right on the spot. And I'm going to take my chances with the judicial system.
Oh, well, that was harsh. Interestingly, Charles Barkley was primarily pointing to LeBron's competitiveness and mentality to argue against his status as the greatest of all time. Because if you ask Jason Kidd, the man who saw LeBron play the worst series of his life and suffer the single lowest moment of his career, this is what he had to say despite all of the above.
LeBron becomes the all-time leading scorer next year. Does that make him the greatest player of all time, or is that still Michael Jordan?
That's a good question, and that's, the barbershop question. I think LeBron will go down as the greatest to do it. When you look at what his numbers, what he's done on and off the floor, no one's done that. And so he'll go, you got to put the whole package together. He's the greatest of all time.
Okay, let me transition a bit. Back in 1998, and exactly 6 years after the entire controversy in which Michael Jordan allegedly kept Isaiah Thomas from participating on the Dream Team, Isaiah Thomas, now as an announcer, had this to say about MJ and where he stands on the all-time ladder.
It's not the flashy things, it's the little simple things that he does. It's his fundamental base combined with his skill base that makes him the greatest player to ever play.
And you say that without hesitation.
Without hesitation.
You weren't always convinced. There was a point maybe midway through his career where you wouldn't have given him that honor, but eventually he won you over, right?
Well, when you're playing against him, you know you're not going to say that because you got to come out and compete against him. But now sitting over here in the mic and being out of the game for 3 or 4 years and watching what he's done over the last couple of years, without question, this guy's the greatest that I've ever seen play.
If you've been paying attention at all, you know that is an incredible mouthful coming from Isaiah Thomas. And it's especially interesting considering Isaiah's recent track record of where he's been on the GOAT debate. And just keep one thing in mind. That was 1998, long after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar retired from the NBA. Now hear this.
All right, Isaiah, I have to ask you this question. It is a topic we have debated many times on this show. Who is the better all-time player, LeBron or Michael?
Well, I'm going to say neither. In my opinion, neither one of them are. And I've been on record saying this. To me, the greatest player to ever play the game that I've seen is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
That was an entire 19 years after Isaiah had already announced MJ as the undisputed greatest player of all time, while MJ was still playing. Fast forward 7 years later, and like I've been saying, these opinions change far too often.
Do you have LeBron over Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Not until he passes him in the scoring title, but as an all-around player, yes.
That's now 2 former NBA players that have said that LeBron's status as GOAT is pending on his quest to becoming the NBA's all-time leading scorer. Well, I guess they now have LeBron as the GOAT. See, we can't be mad at this fact. LeBron is 20 years in and is on pace to average at least 25 or more points per game for an incredible 19th season in a row. And speaking of points, he stands on the mountaintop as the NBA's all-time leading scorer. But even with all that being said, there is one man, one transformational, mythical, and immortal man that played in the NBA and did something every night that had people's jaws hanging. The man retired more than 2 decades ago and is still the most recognizable sports figure of all time. He's the reason why 85% of the population ever picked up a basketball. The players have spoken, data has been collected, and all the numbers have been crunched. And no doubt should be left in anyone's mind. He's Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the greatest player of all time.